Hi, everybody. I'm Jared. Welcome to Game Plus Unmuted. To start with, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today. For me and those of us in the ACT, this is the Ngunnawal people. I'd like to acknowledge, I acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contributions they make to life in this city and this region. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be attending today's event from other areas of Australia. We're all across Australia today. Thank you. So this is Game Plus Unmuted. We are amplifying voices in the games industry, talking to members of Game Plus, the national co-working space network for game developers, and also our extended network of cool people in the games industry. So today I'll be getting a bit of help from Michelle. I'm our community manager in Canberra and team leader for Game Plus. And Michelle will be playing a game for us today in the background, keeping an eye out for your comments as you're commenting on YouTube and Facebook, and helping out on the technical side. Michelle, are you among us? Among us indeed. I think red sus, Michelle.
Yeah, I can't see in this, so I'm going to take it. But yeah, I felt I needed to cosplay, considering like it's around that season now, and
it is.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. But yes, red sus.
Well, Red also helping us playing Witch Thief. So we're going to have Tim Bermanseder on the stream with us in just a minute, and you will be struggling through bullet hell in Witch Thief in the background for us, yeah?
Yep, that's it. So sit tight, guys, while I get it all set up, and I'll see you in game.
Thank you. All right, Tim, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Enjoying a bit of sunshine before it apparently rains again this week.
Yes, it's unpredictable at the moment. Look, I've got a little bio here for you. You can follow on from this, but let me give you the intro you deserve. We are joined by Tim Bermanseder, a 3D technical artist and VFX artist, co-founder of Cardboard Keep, camera studio here, and developer of Witch Thief, which we'll see today. So yeah, Tim worked with Cardboard Keep on several different titles, which we'll go into, but also Witch Thief, which is mostly a Tim gig, and now you are the learning and development officer building interactive training for defense. Yeah?
Yeah, that's
awesome.
It. Nailed it.
Cool. Awesome. So, I mean, I did just run through a quick history of that, but like, how did you get into the games industry? And you've gone through, like, if I'm counting right, we've gone through Cardboard Keep, so that's a a studio here in Canberra, then doing some solo stuff, and now working with government too.
So I guess my humble origins that I like to tell people is that I started making Doom maps with my dad back when I was a wee kid.
Yeah.
Which, having 3 other brothers, we were essentially always LANing together. So
Cool.
A good blast.
Nice.
So a PC gamer at heart, I soon found that games had map editors, and that was just awesome.
Yes.
I love being able to jump in and build my own little stories.
That's awesome. And that led you into studying games, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. When I discovered I could maybe get paid for actually building cool stuff, that sounded awesome.
Cool. We're just seeing Witch Thief loading up here. And hopefully the stream will handle it, not too chuggy. I'm sure it'll load in a minute. Now, for those who might not know, you're a technical artist. So tell us what, so there's artists, there's programmers. What's a technical artist?
So a technical artist is, if you think of an artist, they make things look pretty. And you think of a programmer, they make things actually be able to function. The technical artist is often the bridge. They connect the art and the program together and make it work. So naturally, things like VFX tend to fall into this category, as the visual effects tie very closely to actual gameplay elements. Technical artists also tend to, in small gigs, they're the ones who set up the animations to make sure that animations plug into the game systems and the game engine.
Yeah, cool. So having that knowledge sort of both sides. I mean, there's more than one side, but the technical and the art side means that I suppose that then you can make a game, but with a good overview of it all. We'll get back into some Cardboard Keep stuff in a little bit. You made this game as part of Cardboard Keep, but Witch Thief was mainly just you, yeah?
Yeah, so part of being a technical artist, I wanted to learn more about programming. So I always had a base level knowledge of programming, but to enhance my skills, I figured, well, why not make a game? Walk the road. And that led itself to Witch Thief's creations. The genre itself is fairly simple. It's just a bullet hell, right? Like, it's very arcadey in its movement. And as a result, that led itself to just this growing project that just kept getting bigger and bigger until eventually we figured, hey, why don't we actually throw this up on Steam and make a few bucks out of it?
Yeah, nice. So projects that, as you can see, it's a difficult game. Projects that, like not every game jam game or prototype needs to become a full game. So what was it about this one that it kind of made you, want to continue on with it? You said it got bigger and bigger, but like, what grabbed you about this particular project? The gameplay, the setting, that kind of stuff.
I mean, I suppose there's a level of pride, I guess. Having created it all myself, I kind of want to see it through. And making a game is a lot more than just, say, putting in some pretty art. There's a lot of marketing involved, a lot of community management, as you yourself would be well aware. And while I'm certainly no expert in any of those fields, having had to explore that and then represent the game in all these different ways and actually get it ported, say, onto the Nintendo Switch as well, I learned a lot doing that. And that's was really the driving force behind actually taking it the whole distance.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think, yeah, so you with Cardboard Keep made this game, and all of Cardboard Keep's games, I think, were in the Game Plus Canberra co-working space. So we've seen a lot of this stuff in progress too. So
it was very awesome to be able to share it with everyone else in the Games Plus space, be able to go to our rush hours and really catch up and see what everyone else is working on and have that kind of community to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, awesome. I'm super glad that helped. It was really cool seeing this stuff like in progress. I remember seeing Puzzle Puppets when it was gray boxes, and it was just the concept. I think there was a few of these games were also play testing and alpha and beta testing in Game Plus before it went out to a wider audience. So it's really cool. That kind of stuff helped. What I'm trying to remember back to when we saw this. If we see some of the little effects of the sort of the lights, the bullets, there we are coming at the player. We've got this little line that connects them to the ground and things like that. I feel like that was a conversation we had about how do we. Tell me a bit about those iterations of the game.
Some of the feedback we got with making a bullet hell 3D was it's actually really hard to tell where the bullets are. And as the hitbox is so important in this genre, you're doing some really tight maneuvering, being able to tell exactly where those bullets are became incredibly important. The lines drop down to the floor and they help you know where in perspective space those bullets actually exist. And from feedback from testing with a whole bunch of people and showing at PAX, everyone just always left the lines on. There's an option, you can turn them on and off in the options, but everyone just wants them on because you kind of need it to be able to properly see the environment you're in. Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, that's like one of the really good values of playtesting, right? If the closer you are to the project, the more you're like, I don't need lines. I've played it for hundreds of hours. I understand. Cool. So how was it? This was, I think, the fourth project. Is that right, with Cardboard Keep? How was it working? Because you're one of the co-founders of Cardboard Keep. So you worked on team projects first. So did that prepare you, or how did that prepare you? I think that's what you're asking. It's a mixed blessing. So working in a team has a lot of benefits, but sometimes you feel your creativity is stifled. Working on your own, you feel like you have all the creativity, but you're just one man with a hammer and you need to build a house. So my personal opinion now would be working in a team is by far better. Witch Thief is certainly rough around some edges. You know, I'm not the strongest in all the suits, and as a result, it can sometimes suffer. In having a team, you can have someone who's like the programming guy, and he's just really awesome. You can have like the person who loves the combat, and they make the combat really awesome. You know, you can just have someone dedicated to music. And that kind of allows you to have all these different pillars of your game be really awesome and amazing.
Yeah, it is that interesting, pros and cons. Like you have having control over everything, but then also being the only one accountable for it.
Exactly right.
Do you find that time frame wise, like did that and scope did that differ much from moving into solo with no one to hold you accountable except yourself?
There is certainly feature creep.
Yeah, sure.
The game kind of grew and grew, and I was like, kept wanting to experiment with new features. We definitely tried to pull it back. We still consulted within our.
Of course, yeah.
We still talked about it. Ultimately, in the end, it grew perhaps bigger than it should have grown. So
that's the first time I've ever heard that. No, I've never heard that from a game developer before. That's pretty common. Yeah.
I think being on your own, you think you have it under control, and you think you're carrying and wearing all the hats, and you're doing it right. And as a result, when something goes wrong, you kind of think you've mucked it all up. And it's kind of funny because you see all the problems that exist that no one else sees.
Yeah.
And therefore you worry and you spend all this time fixing all these little things that don't matter. When really, if you're on a more decentralized team, you'd be able to create all these individual elements, such as Warden, our first title. I'm sure Callum, who I worked with, would say some of the things feel really janky, but the rest of us on the team were like, no, this is the best. This is awesome. You know, we're telling he's done a great job. And that kind of teamwork and cooperation is just the best.
That's awesome.
Really, it just lets you stop worrying about not doing a good enough job and move on to start making the next awesome thing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and that's a really good, I think, like dissection of, hey, there's benefits by working by yourself, but also, there's some really, really good stuff from the team as well. And I suppose, like you said, whether you're with a team or by yourself, if you've got other people like a Game Plus to bounce ideas off, or taking it to a convention like PAX or a local meetup, then that kind of gives some form of that feedback too. Talking of PAX, you had a booth there for Witch Thief, and you've done a bunch of marketing around it as well. So this is a combination of genres. It's not the first game the studio put out, but you were super heavily involved with this. How do you have any tips from your experience with Cardboard Keep and Witch Thief on the marketing of a game, whether that's like at a convention? I mean, they'll be different coming up. Online as well.
I think they tie in together. I think the benefit of say PAX is building community. And when people tell you to create email lists and engage with people, it's not just standing at a booth and chatting with people. And maybe what we did, we stood at the booth, we chatted, and we would even sell copies. We could sell keys. I think to really market your game well, you need to build a community around your game. And in the beginning, that feels crappy because we set up a Discord and you've got like 10 people in there and you feel like you're just faking and you're an imposter, right? But that's... Everyone starts with these humble roots, and by, say, going to PAX or attending even really small gigs like, say, Rush Hours or Games Nights at Games Plus, you continue building these little bridges. And if you build a large enough community, suddenly the community starts driving itself and drawing more members in. But yeah, I think the hardest part is to really start to build that community. You can do that, and we kind of semi-did that at PAX by connecting with what we would like to refer to as super fans. These are the people who are just so into it. They would keep coming back. And those are the people who you want to try and capture in events such as PAX. We, in our earlier titles, got very focused on doing things like interviews and connecting to big, important, fancy people who are famous or the like, and doing streams with them. That's not as important as connecting and creating a cool space for people to engage with.
Yeah, interesting. And that's that last bit you said as well, of like a cool space for them to engage with. Like the game, it's out there. It might be early access. It might be released, depending on where people are at. But like, I mean, a while ago, it was kind of just like the Steam page or the mailing list or whatever. But you mentioned Discord. Having like an actual online space where they can give you feedback and you can talk directly with them. Like you found that those sorts of interactions super valuable.
Yeah, we definitely found that those interactions were what actually drives people to stay involved and to actually buy the game and spread it around to their friends. The people who found the game so fun that they wanted to buy multiple copies so they can give them to other people, they're doing that not necessarily because they love the game so much, but because they see an opportunity to share their experience and the emotional impact that the game gave them with their friends. And I think that is one of the most awesome things about video games, and being able to share any kind of art or property with other people.
Totally, yeah. And like when that is people being so excited that they want to share something that you have made, that that feeling is kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people are in it. I think that must be really gratifying. I want to ask for people who I'll before I get into that, if anyone out there in internet land has comments, questions for Tim, drop them in the comments, and yeah, we'll get to those at the end. But in the meantime, I got plenty of questions. I want to know so for Witch Thief, but also for the other games you've made. Let's just start with Witch Thief, I guess. What tools did you use? Like tools and software did you use to build it?
Well, I can kind of encompass all of them into one because we use a similar tool set the whole time. Unity was certainly our game engine of choice. I'm not going to get into Unity versus Unreal Engine debate here, but it's certainly engines are just a platform and a tool to springboard you into creating something. So there really isn't a right or wrong answer. For our 3D modeling, initially we were using Maya because that's what we were traditionally trained in, but we swapped to Blender because it's free, And I don't know if anyone follows Blender development, but Blender 2.91 looks pretty ace. It's pretty awesome. It's got some really cool features cooking in there. Photoshop was our image editor of choice. Substance Painter and the Substance Suite definitely was used a lot with Witch Thief to create a lot of the assets and the like. In the materials. I think those were all the big tools that we used. There was a little bit of ZBrush in there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So and that's good, like a little explanation of each of them. Are these the same tools, like for someone who was just getting started in this, like wanted to become a technical artist, say, are those the tools you'd recommend, or where should they start, do you think?
I think if you want to be a tech artist, I would recommend jumping into Unreal Engine to understand node editors and visual scripting, but also jumping into Unity to understand programming, because C# is a lot easier to get started with than C++, which is a bit more cumbersome.
All right, great, thanks. Speaking of learning, let's talk a little bit about, we jumped straight to Witch Thief, which is the fourth game of Cardboard Keep. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about each of the other games
Sure. So our very first title was Warden, Melody of the Undergrowth. It was not the first game we necessarily worked on. We definitely developed and made a whole series of games before then, just both in game jams and the like, just little prototypes. But Warden was the one that really took off, and was the idea that we went with. It's a very Zelda-like action RPG. That was also our big opus magnus, which certainly took us about 3 years to develop Warden, and we learned a lot in that process. We kind of remade the game 3 times in that time period, and every iteration of it got better and better. For our next project, we wanted to, rather than taking 3 years, we wanted to create something really small and tight, which spawned Puzzle Puppers, which was arguably one of our more successful games, because who doesn't love doggos, and a bit of quick puzzle action goes well. And the main goal of Puzzle Puppers was to have a short development cycle that we could then get something out very quickly. Puzzle Puppers you can find on the Nintendo Switch as well, so it served as a great platform for us to learn how to port our games over onto the different consoles. Following this, Attrition was both Attrition and Witch Thief really were passion projects. We were finding ourselves stalling after development of Puzzle Puppers, not knowing what to make. So we decided to fall back on our passion to really drive us to create something. So for me, it was Witch Thief and learning how to do a bunch of programming myself. And for Attrition, Cal really enjoyed tactical strategy games like that. So it was great for us to kind of explore and use our passion to drive it through to the completion line.
That's awesome. Yeah. Falling back, I was gonna ask you at the start, but you definitely explained it through there, like what you learned from each of those projects, like having such a long project, then doing really small scope afterwards, falling back onto passion projects, and we can see the results of that. Like this is the person like Warden, but quite a different worlds a mesh of genres as well. So you mentioned porting there. So can you tell us a little bit about what you learned, and if there is anyone who wants to say develop for the Switch, like how they might start to think about that, look into it?
So it's actually really easy, much easier now than it was in the past. Before our time, it was super difficult. In our time, when we first got started, we were getting these big dev machine boxes. It was still a bit complicated and wasn't so good. These days, the big consoles have definitely made it a lot easier. So if I would recommend anyone who wants to is interested in developing for these, jump on to, say, ID at Xbox and look up how to get a dev kit. Look at type in Nintendo Switch developer or Nintendo Switch dev kit, and you will find their public pages to lead you there. Certainly go into things such as GDC or GCAP here in Australia can help you make some connections with people. And those can help if you're caught in a bind and help give you a bit of confidence. But ultimately, these days, they just direct you back to their main portals because that's the easiest way for both them and yourself to work through the steps. As for the porting itself, sometimes that can be a bit tricky because the community there isn't as large. You can't just type into Google, how do I do this particular thing on Xbox to get my game to working in this weird shader error? It never quite pans out because obviously everything's behind these gates, which you have to have an account for, and therefore Google doesn't pick up on them. But their own internal forums are pretty good. I spent a lot of time scraping through the Nintendo dev forums, just trying to find little problems, and yeah, there is support out there.
That's great, and knowing that it is easier now, and that some of the answers are just a web search away, that is super handy. Now, you went through, like you said before, while Warden might have been the first public project, lots of projects before that, building those skills and so on. Then Witch Thief, and now you have a role in defense. So how did the games career lead you there, and what sort of skills and tools are you using?
So it was at the last PAX that we showcased Witch Thief at that I actually met my now partner, and we wanted to be able to live together and actually have a life together rather than what I was doing at the time, mooching off my parents and making a little bit of income through Witch Thief and freelancing VFX art. So that drive to have a more stable income really drove me towards getting a more real job. But I also wanted to remain in Canberra, where my partner was, and she has her own job here. This was what led me to looking at other jobs that are here in Canberra, and naturally, the e-learning space, funny enough, actually has a big drive towards gamification and gamified training content. They're the ones who are nowadays picking up things like Unreal and Unity and trying to deploy training in them. So that definitely was kind of how I landed into my current role with the APS and defense. It all really came down to they want to be able to innovate and bring in fresh blood into their spaces. And I was fresh blood that had all this knowledge about both games and VR and AR that they were really keen to get a hand of.
That's awesome. And I've noticed that, chatting with other game devs as well, that that transferability of skills, often, it's painted as well, games is games. It was like, well, that's still programming. There's a lot of visual stuff, like you said, lots of other business doing Unreal Engine, AR, VR, gamification, all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool to hear that those skills are super relevant in other industries as well. Excellent. Cool. So we are already almost out of time. I feel like we're just getting started. Want to talk even more. Okay, I'll ask you one more question before we get into some plugs and things. But we talked about if you are coming into games as a technical artist, some tools you might pick up. If you are building a team, seeing as you co-founded the team, or if you were a solo developer, would you have any tips for someone who's just getting started in either setting up a team or setting up as a solo dev?
Ultimately, it comes down to just being able to make something and then being able to see it through. So don't try to take the world on your first project. It's good to aim high and have dreams, but accept that at the end of the day, your game is just a product that people will consume, and they consume it like people consume a book. You know, there are great books out there, and people have had a great time reading. Like, I've read plenty of books, but ultimately, when you finish the book, you put it down and you don't engage with that book so much anymore. The authors who are most famous are the ones who either release content consistently, so they're continually pulling more people in to read their books, or authors who, I don't say win the lottery, but have figured out how to really merchandise on their products. You know, Harry Potter is the thing that jumps to my mind there. The books sold well, but I'm sure a lot of money was made from selling things that weren't just the books.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you can find a way to do that, and in the games industry, a lot of that is with your community. People are only going to buy your DLC or your next game if they are both interested in you and they know about you. You know, and hopefully you're making something good, so people will be interested in you. And we kind of take that for granted, but knowing about you is the trickiest part. So I'd say to kind of touch on building your own team or bringing people together, have faith in people and don't hold your ideas too precious. You know, we definitely clashed in a small team at times. Say I wanted to implement a system, someone didn't like that system. We felt like it pulled the game in wrong or right directions. That's okay. Like, the game is actually cooler for having those little influences of everyone come together and baked into something.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the differences that, like you said, then being solo as well. And you mentioned also, like, releasing that game, like not letting that scope creep too far. Releasing that game, you learn a lot once it's out there in the industry. In the market. And you know, then your super fans have something to share with other people. So cool, awesome. That's really great to hear, Tim. Thank you. All right, I think it's time to wrap up. So where can the people find you? We've got some links to bring up on screen. If people have questions about this, can they hit you up on Twitter and that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. So my Twitter would be @AgileTim. So you can if you look up Cardboard Keep, you'll find our website. You can find all 4 of our games. Or jump on Steam. You can look up Cardboard Keep to get our publisher page, or you can just look up, say, Warden or Witch Thief on Steam, Nintendo Switch, and the like.
Okay, awesome.
I want to add how bad I was at that game the entire time.
It looked a bit rough. It is the bullet hell game, but it's a mastery thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, I'm on a laptop with one of those touch screeny things. I'm not a PC gamer at all.
A double hard mode by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I'm
you
terrible.
Right. You weren't on the easiest level. So.
Whatever.
Michelle, can you bring up a couple of those links that Tim mentioned for us?
Yes.
I think
sorry, I was kind of into the game and raging.
Yeah. No, that's all good.
So here is one for Game Plus Unmuted. If you want to get involved, if you want to be interviewed like Tim, and I promise it will be less awkward next time, at least from me. Jared.
Yeah, so Game Plus Unmuted is what you've just been watching. We're talking to members and people from our extended network. So gameplus.com.au/getunmuted. There's a form there if you want to apply. You can tell us what you want to talk about. If you want to talk about yourself, or if you've got someone else you want to bring on. We're prioritizing our members of the space as well. So if you want to become a member, we've got a new flexible membership. We've got a link for that as well. So that's gameplus.com.au/flex. So, we know things are different this year and sort of ongoing. You can join from anywhere. We've got spaces in Adelaide, Canberra, and Sydney. But the flexible membership lets you join our online Discord community as well. We've got 300 people across there. That's where, Tim with Cardboard Keep, where we did playtesting of some of these games, got some feedback, ran some rush hour events, which we're doing online now. So cool way to get involved in the community if you're keen. And lastly, I think just for people who might have missed the links that Tim said, I think we've got a few of those we can bring up in text as well. Cardboardkeep.com for all those games on various platforms, including Switch. Tim's game Witch Thief, which you just saw played. You can have a go at it yourself. And
You'll be better than me, I promise.
WitchThief.games. Lots of cool information about it on there as well. And Tim's Twitter, as he mentioned, is at AgileTim. So hit him up and chat more. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thank you guys very much.
It was really fun. It's nice to chat and pick your brain a bit and get lots of those insights from you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
All right, cool. See you next time.
Bye.